You've made it through multiple rounds of interviews and you're one of the final candidates. You're already picturing the offer, and then the unfortunate email arrives. After careful consideration, we've decided to move forward with another candidate. If you've gotten that email, you know exactly how gut-wrenching it is. But here's what job seekers miss. If you've made it to the final rounds, the problem is not your qualifications. It's not your experience, and it may not even be your interview skills. It's your focus. More specifically, it's because you're likely saying too much. And the more irrelevant information you give, the harder it becomes for the employer to see your value and understand why you're a fit. So let's fix it. I'm going to show you how to stop rambling, focus on what employers actually care about, and make it painfully obvious that you're the right person for the job. Hi friends, if we haven't met yet, my name is Kate Kirshner. Consider me your new career bestie. I'm a career strategist with 20 years of experience helping job seekers understand how hiring decisions are actually made. Let's get into it. The first reason people talk too much in interviews is because they don't actually know what matters most to the employer. Most candidates prepare by reviewing common interview questions and trying to think of everything they might want to say. The strongest candidates take a completely different approach. They don't prepare for interview questions, they prepare for employer problems. Because here's the truth. If you don't know what problem the employer is trying to solve, how can you possibly know which parts of your experience matter most? Every job was created because an organization has a problem they need someone to solve. Until you understand that problem, it's almost impossible to know what information matters most. Here's a simple shortcut. Copy and paste the job description into your favorite AI tool and prompt. What problem was this role designed to solve? Then take it a step further and ask, which of my resume bullets best demonstrate that I can solve these problems? This will help you quickly identify the experiences that are most relevant to this particular role. That said, don't rely entirely on AI. Spend time researching the company. Look at their website, their social media, recent announcements, and any current initiatives. Pay attention to where they're headed and what they seem to be focused on right now. The better you understand their priorities, the easier it becomes to focus your answer on what they actually care about most. Most candidates try to prove they can do everything. The best candidates prove they can solve the right problem for that employer. The second reason people talk too much is because they're trying to organize their thoughts while they're answering the question. And that's when the rambling starts to kick in. You begin with one example, remember another example halfway through, add details that aren't completely relevant, and before you know it, you've been talking for 3 minutes and you haven't really answered the interviewer's question. That's why I recommend something I like to call story buckets. Instead of trying to prepare answers for 50 different interview questions, prepare 6 to 8 strong stories from your career. Maybe one demonstrates problem solving, one demonstrates leadership, one shows how you improved a process, and one highlights how you handle the difficult customer or stakeholder or have strong communication skills. The goal is not to memorize answers. The goal is to memorize your story. Then, when you're asked a question, you're not searching through your entire career history trying to find the perfect example. You're simply selecting the story that best fits the question and adapting it. This makes your answer shorter, clearer, and much easier for employers to follow, while also helping you stay focused on what actually matters. And here's the bonus. Story buckets don't just make your answers better, they also make interviews a whole lot less stressful. Because you're no longer trying to invent the perfect answer right on the spot. You already know your story. You're simply choosing the one that best answers the question and is most relevant to the role. The third reason people talk too much is because they're focused on impressing instead of understanding. Most candidates walk into interviews thinking about what they want to say. They're rehearsing the perfect answers in their head, they're waiting for their turn to speak, and they're trying to remember all the points that they're hoping to make. Here's where great candidates separate themselves. While candidates are waiting for their turn to talk, great candidates are looking for clues. They pay close attention. Interviewers are constantly giving you clues. They might be telling you about challenges on the team. They'll mention projects they're working on. They'll explain where previous employees maybe struggled. They'll talk about goals for the department and priorities for the organization. They're literally telling you what they care about. Every one of those comments gives you valuable insight into what matters most. The more carefully you listen, the easier it becomes to connect your experience directly to their needs. For example, if an interviewer asks about your strengths, answer the question, then ask something like, what strengths do you see your most successful employees in this role have? Now you've gathered some information that most candidates never uncover. Later in the interview, when discussing your accomplishments, projects, or achievements, you can intentionally highlight examples that demonstrate those exact strengths. You can do the same thing when they discuss upcoming projects or department goals. Ask thoughtful questions, get curious, and then connect your experience to what they've just shared with you. Let me show you exactly what I mean. Imagine an interviewer tells you they're looking for someone who can improve communication across departments. Most candidates hear that and they go ahead and move on to the next question. A great candidate hears something like that, files it away, and later says, earlier you mentioned improving communication across departments. One project that comes to mind is, now you're not just answering a question, but you're showing them how you're a fit for their exact need. This is one of the biggest differences between average candidates and great candidates. Average candidates try to impress employers with everything they know, and great candidates don't try to prove they're impressive. They prove they understand the employer's biggest challenges, they listen carefully, identifies what matters most, and provide focused examples that show they can help solve those specific problems. At the end of the day, employers do not need your entire life story. They don't need every accomplishment, every responsibility, or every detail from your career. What they need is confidence that you can solve their problems. The candidates who receive offers are not the ones who talk the most. They're the ones who communicate the most relevant value. Here's what I want you to remember. Before your next interview, don't ask yourself, what else should I tell them? Ask yourself, have I already given them enough evidence to answer their question? If the answer is yes, simply stop talking. Sometimes the strongest interview answer is the one that ends a little bit sooner. If you found this helpful, do not forget to like and subscribe. And I am also going to drop my Get Seen Job Search Guide in the comments. It is one place where you can go to get absolutely everything you need to write resumes that are going to get you the interviews. See you later, besties.